So what am I going to do with you today? I already started with my little introduction, trying to show what my motivation is for this kind of research and talk. I would then go a little bit into the idea of excellence. What does excellence really mean? We all talk about excellence in universities and recently also in German universities, but what does it really mean? I will then talk about visibility, because excellence without visibility is not there, and there might also be visibility without excellence in research, which could be a problem. I would then like to take you into some results of own empirical research projects about the obvious or perceived difficulties or contradictions between equality and excellence, and also about excellence and visibility of excellence. And my conclusion will be that we have to rethink our concept of excellence, and we also have to improve visibility, in particular visibility of younger researchers. So, as I said, one of my motivation or my team's motivation to look into these issues is the situation of women in science. And we can still see, and mathematics is a very good example for this, that women in science are still underrepresented very often in many subjects, and their achievements are not taken into account or not seen very often. This slide shows some very good and prominent women in science, but if we see it in general, we can see that the scientific system, at least in Germany, has developed over centuries under the exclusion of women. And in Germany, for example, women were only admitted at universities a little bit more than 100 years ago. And for a long time, their contributions to science, to research were not recognized, or they were even questioned. There are, of course, exceptions like Marie Curie, but in general, this is the finding. And still, if we look today at what we regard the ideal scientific personality, it's still predominantly male scientists we have in mind. You can also see this if you look at shares of men and women at different stages of the academic career. And what I brought with me today is a chart from my Bundesland, North Rhine-Westphalia, which shows clearly that at the level of students to the left, Studierende, women and men are balanced 50-50%. Even if you look at students doing their degrees, we now have more women than men, almost 54% women. But if you look at PhD students, if you look in particular at those doing the habilitation and professors to the right, there's still a very big gap between men and women. And at the level of professors, we now have about 1/3 female and 2/3 male professors. We have to be careful with this graph because it's not a longitudinal graph. It shows the situation in 2021, which means that, of course, today's students could develop in another way. But there are still enough signs that show that the idea of the perception of who is excellent and who can make an academic career differs a lot when it comes to men and women. So the question is, who becomes visible with her or his research? If we look at what is excellence, and this is my second point, I would like to spend some time on this idea of excellence. What does it mean? It comes from Latin excellere, to excel, to stand out, or excellentia. And if you look in German history, the academic history, it's a quite recent phenomenon. in the discourse on science and higher education policy. When I did my PhD in 1995, and then there was no idea of excellence, better excellence universities or other universities, they didn't exist. So it started in the 2000s with this, when new public management became a dominant idea for German universities. And this meant that we had a changeover to stronger detailed control of the university, to monitoring the results. We had a trend towards metrification of input and output dimensions. And this contributed to this idea of what is excellent. We have to measure excellence and we have to develop criteria. When we talk about excellence, we have to differentiate between different levels of excellence. Institutions can be excellent. This is more the political level. It can also be personal excellence or the excellence of processes or results. These are different things. In 2004, in Germany, we started with what we called the German Excellence Initiatives. Some of you are probably quite familiar with this idea, others not. What was the aim of this excellence initiative? It was to strengthen top-level research in Germany and improve its international competitiveness. And it was mainly triggered by the German Research Foundation, DFG, and the German Council of Science and Humanities. So they started with this program of excellence, universities, excellence initiative, by funding graduate schools for the promotion of young scientists, clusters of excellence for the promotion of cutting-edge research, and also future concepts for the project-related expansion of university top-level research, the so-called excellence universities. And the German government has since spent quite a lot of money on this excellence initiative. By the end of 2012, a total of 1.9 billion euros had already been provided in this first phase of the excellence initiative by the federal and state government for the funding of this initiative. 18 in this first round of excellence initiative, 18 graduate schools, 17 clusters of excellence, and 3 excellence universities, institutional strategies were funded. In 2010, the second round of the Excellence Initiative was announced. This program was another 5-year program from 2012 to 17, where 21 graduate schools, 20 clusters of excellence, and 6 institutional future concepts were funded. And now, since 2016, this excellence strategy was adopted as a follow-up program to the Excellence Initiative with an unlimited duration. And as you know, currently we are working on a new cluster projects, and the new round of the Excellence Initiative is just underway. I'm personally involved in a little bit in one of these clusters, and we are of course very thrilled to see what the results will be. A point I really want to stress is, and this is our analysis, that within this trend toward the Excellence Initiative and the idea of excellence, we have developed a quite narrow idea of what excellence in research and universities really is. And you can see this if you look at post offerings, when they have announcements for new professors, for example, and you can always see the same issues coming up. So what is the predominant understanding of excellence? This narrow understanding, it's a relevance of third-party funding, highly ranked publications, awards, international visibility, then a little bit the mark of the PhD thesis, and sometimes teaching experience, but this is only behind the other criteria. So the idea we have today, at least in German universities, about what is excellent is really quite narrow. However, we see that these assessment criteria vary. Sometimes output as publications is regarded more important, sometimes third-party funding or prices. And there are some assumptions and stereotypes behind it, which means that there's a certain danger of self-fulfilling prophecy if we look at only some criteria. In general, we see that this term of excellence appeals to high standards. It's therefore difficult to reject the idea of excellence. We all want to be excellent as researchers, of course. But there is enough research showing that this is somehow an essentially contested concept and a little bit arbitrary and vague as well. And there is a risk for the exercise of power and the opportunity to negotiate about excellence. So it's a quite difficult concept, I would say. Let's turn a little bit to the next concept. What is visibility? Because as I said, excellence is excellent, but it has to become visible to be recognized as excellence. The interesting thing is when we look at visibility of research, we have different arenas of visibility. Of course, we all know that it's important for us as researchers to be visible in our own academic community. You in mathematics, I in labor market policy and social policy. So we know we have to be visible in specialist journals, highly ranked publications. We have to present our work at conferences, and we have to expand and maintain informal networks, formal and informal networks. This kind of visibility is quite well known. But there is another development in universities, and this is very often connected to the term, the third mission of university. There is research, there is teaching, and the third mission means societal impact. In some countries like England, it is really regarded very important now to be visible in the public, in the broader public, and it's becoming more important in Germany as well. What does this mean? This means, we have seen this in the COVID crisis, that visibility of researchers was very important to explain what's happening just now. This means provision of generally understandable research results for the public, innovation, social added value, application, relevance. So it is also expected from us as scientists, as researchers, to be publicly visible in the public, because there is an increasingly public interest in publicly funded research. So we are expected to communicate, maybe not as much in mathematics as in the social sciences, but we are expected to communicate in the into the broader public. However, if we look at who is visible, and I come back to gender gaps, we see that women and their research are not as visible, both in the scientific community and in the broader public, as we should expect it, even if we take into account that there are fewer women in, for example, professor positions. We know that there's a gender wage gap in professorship wages. I don't want to go into detail here, but it has increased when the salary system changed to the so-called W remuneration. We have a gender care gap that keeps, in particular, young female researchers away from research more than young male professors, although they might also be fathers. Women care more for children than men, even when they have both children. And what is maybe more interesting here is that we found in recent research that there's also a gender publication gap and gender citation gap. There are several more recent research projects that have pointed out that male researchers are better represented in journal articles than female researchers, and even women have increased their representation in joint publications, but they are still underrepresented, in particular in single author publications. We also see that there's a gender award gap. The big prizes, academic prizes, are mostly given to male researchers, even if the research is kind of comparable between men and women. It's not my own research. I refer to other more recent studies here. So again, who becomes visible and how? Interestingly, we also see that female researchers are less represented in the public sphere, in this other arena of visibility. If we look, for example, at scientific councils, the Scientific Council in the Ministry of Finance only has 14% women. In the Ministry of Economy and Energy, 15% women. So not very many women are visible there. Interestingly, the German Council of Economic Experts, the Sachverständigenrat zur Begutachtung der gesamtwirtschaftlichen Entwicklung, die sogenannten Wirtschaftsweisen, if you speak German, quite prestigious. They were male-dominated for many, many years, only male, and now it's 3 out of 5 are women, so suddenly they have 60% women. But the general finding is that women are only visible there, female researchers in scientific councils, where topics like family issues are on the fore. You see it here. There you have about 2/3 women in the scientific council. And we also have research showing that women are asked less often as experts in info formats. Okay. Visibility also has a symbolic dimension. It's not only about what people do, what people show, but how this is received by the audience. Here you see a male and a female researcher showing the same thing, but the audience has a very different impression. An excellent young man and a dreaming young woman, although they show the same things, but the reception is different, and this can also make a difference. Okay, I will now turn to 2 research projects in this field of equal chances, diversity, gender equality research. I conducted with my own team, or 2 teams myself. One is still ongoing. And in the first project, we wanted to find out more about professors' attitude towards equal chances, diversity, and in particular, gender equality. We did a big interview study with professors because our research interest was to see what do they know about equality issues and how do they act themselves in this arena of equality, because they are the real gatekeepers for academic careers. And it's professors who can decide whether young women or men or people from underrepresented groups have a chance to establish themselves in the academic system. It's not equality officers at universities. They can support it, but it's the professors. They have the power to decide on future careers. So what do they really know? What do they think? And how do they act in terms of equality issues? We published in the end this book, Gleichstellungspolitik an Hochschulen, but this is in German. It's also open access. But to those who are interested in the topic, but English speaking, I can recommend this other book, Inequalities and the Paradigm of Excellence in Academia, which gives an international overview about related topics. So one of the interesting findings, and this is not particularly gender related, is that the professors we interviewed about more than 40 professors, semi-structured long interviews about their role in academia and their vision on equality and chances. And one of the findings was that many of them described the academic arena as a battlefield. I was kind of frightened myself because I was not aware of it before I read all these interviews, and we had all these interviews. So the way they perceive academia or research was that there's an individual researcher, there are a lot of visible and invisible rules in research in academia, and it's a competition and a fight with winners and losers. And actually, it is something like this, because even if you have a full professorship, you have to go on competing for prizes, for publications, for third-party money. It never ends. And we found, in particular, many women who, at a certain point in their career, said, this is not the kind of research I wanted to do, always competing with somebody. So this seems to be one of the structural things in the system that might disadvantage some people and advantage others. We also found other central overarching patterns in all these interviews with professors we conducted some years ago. And I only want to mention three, which I listed in this slide. Of course, one whole field of explanations about missing equality and maybe disadvantages for women was about family and childcare as dominated challenges. Everybody said, okay, women, it's harder for them once they become a mother, they have to work-life balance issues to solve, and it's harder for them to establish themselves in academia and to show excellent results of their research. Certainly there is something in this argument. The real problem is that very often equality offices and universities only focus on this field. They try to build up childcare facilities and support young mothers. And they sometimes it is ignored that other issues like where is money, where is power, who has the saying in the academic arena is ignored, because everybody concentrates on this issue of family and childcare, which is one but not the only issue when it comes to visibility and equality and so on. Hierarchies among professors and their rank in the whole system is another one. And then there was the one I want to focus on. This is the red field here in this slide, the perceived conflict between equality and excellence. So many professors told us that they are in favor of equality of chances, of gender equality, minorities should be supported in the academic system, and so on. But they said, we don't know how to act when, on the one hand side, we are expected to select, in particular when it comes to hiring of new professors, we are expected to hire only the best and excellent people. And then the equality officer comes and says, oh, now we need a woman. Try to put a woman on the list because of equality issues. And there is a very strong perception of a kind of contradiction between what is excellence and what is equality of chances. And this led us a little bit to another, the second project I would like to talk about, which is now still ongoing, where this is a project funded by the Bundesministerium für Bildung und Forschung, the Ministry for Research, the German Ministry for Research. And this is a project called EXENCO, Excellence and Visibility from the Perspective of Postdocs, Professors, and Actors in University Communication, where we tried to to dive deeper into these concepts of excellence and visibility. And we also asked ourselves, what can the university communication offices, the press offices, do to support equality issues and to support also visibility of good research? So we did it with several other universities. I'm the project leader together with Maren Jochimsen, and we have a team, and we did an interview study and many conferences and workshops at these 4 universities. So our questions here, we focus here on postdocs, and we wanted to know, what do they regard to be excellent in their discipline? What is excellent for younger, in the view of younger researchers? And how do they want to work in academia, in research? So our questions, for example, were, who or what is considered excellent in your discipline? How would you personally define excellence for yourself? And how are visibility and excellence related? But this is only, of course, 3 questions out of a big questionnaire and many interviews we did. The interesting result: some of these common excellence criteria have apparently been internalized strongly by young researchers, the ones I showed you in the DNA graph in the beginning of my talk. So all these younger researchers said, well, excellence in the scientific system is demonstrated by publications in highly ranked journals and research applications. It can be visible in the acquisition of third-party money. You have to be present in conferences. You have to be present in networks. You need a certain degree of internationalization. This is excellence. But we also found a lot of criticism about this idea, this quite narrow idea of excellence. For example, the younger researchers criticized the salami slicing. So they said, I don't want to do research in order to publish as many little articles as possible, just to push my publication record. They also criticized, in general, the pressure to publish, and they said it leads to a decrease of the quality of research. Another argument was that it should be possible to share also misluck and failed research. We try to hide it, but instead of hiding it, it would be good for the scientific community if we could openly communicate about failed research. One quotation: if you somehow found out that it doesn't work that way and publish about it, it would save a lot of money and frustration for other people and other institutions. Some postdoc from STEM, it was mainly STEM subjects, people from STEM subjects we interviewed. And again, they said there's not enough recognition for care work in the academic sphere. So it was obviously we need a broader concept of excellence. So which concept of excellence could be helpful? A focus on traditional excellence metrics, they said, the younger researchers said, it's like dancing around like the golden calf. They criticized that this disadvantages, for example, for women, first-generation academics, people of color, and so on. And there was obviously a growing awareness for the limits on excellence, metrics, and biases. One quotation from the press officer: scientific excellence does not always go hand in hand with public perception and visibility. In other words, there are certainly people who conduct sensational research at our university, but they are invisible to the public. We have to be aware that if we take diversity and excellence serious, we have to look at different dimensions that could have an impact on what is regarded excellent or what is visible, what kind of research is visible. And I don't want to go into detail very much here, but you can see, and this is a graph we developed in the project, that there are structural dimensions, but also symbolic dimensions, physical or subjective dimensions that could play a role. If we look at structural dimensions, it's the question, who has access to resources? How are resources distributed? For example, people at excellence universities have a lot of resources. Other poor universities cannot support researchers to the same extent. Then there are symbolic dimensions like stereotype, language, hierarchies, and the influence on the self-perception of researchers, but also physical elements. In particular, in our workshops, women, female researchers often stated that they don't want to be exposed, for example, in social media, in the public, because they fear harassment. They are vulnerable as a person with certain physical characteristics. And then, of course, we have subjective elements or dimensions like the individual appropriation of norms and attributions. And they all somehow play together when it comes to what is really excellent and what do we perceive as excellent. So, excellence from the perspective of the postdoc interviewed. How do they want to work in academia, in research? They want to be innovative, a pioneer in their field. They want to advance a topic, expand complexity, think ahead. There was a high desire for sustainable research. They don't want to reinvent something again, but they want to work for the future, to have visions. Many of them said it's important to them that their research has a benefit for society. They also developed understanding of the fact that excellence requires a lot of different conditions. And there was a discussion about this question, is there right to be invisible? Can I be a good researcher and not being visible? It was discussed in several of our workshops. To sum this up, we think we need a broader concept of excellence and good research. Of course, third-party funding, highly ranked publications, awards, international visibility, and so on. All these topics on the left will still be important for seeing and attesting excellence. But something like societal responsibility, the content, fairness, curiosity and motivation, originality, intercultural competence, self-reflection, engagement for others, teamwork. These were all topics that were brought up by the younger researchers in the postdoc researchers as other things they valued, they regarded as important for quality of research. So let's turn once more to the question of what is visibility of good research and excellence. And what we saw in our interviews is that there are tensions in science communication, in the way we communicate about our research, about good research, about science. Our interviewees also, they stated that, of course, the quality of research has a high priority, but this is the most important thing for them. But they also saw that there's a growing importance of communicating about what their work and their research. And many of the researchers said that they do not have this specific knowledge and for the performance required in communicating about their own research. So we saw different questions that have to be reflected. Obviously, visibility can be very ambivalent, and the benefit of public visibility for one's own career in research is not always clear. So many of the younger researchers said we would like to be visible in the public. I mean, again, maybe for you in mathematics, that's not the main point, but in other topics, in other disciplines, there is a big visibility, awareness that they should be visible somehow. But there was a big insecurity. How much time should I spend in a visibility strategy or different activities? For example, should I go to a talk show or give an interview to the press? Or is this sometimes that takes my time away from publication? So they felt somehow insecure. They also felt insecure when press offices approached them and asked them to give an interview. The younger researchers very often had the idea, they were insecure. Why do they ask me? Do I have something to tell already? Or the project is not yet finished. In particular, young women were very hesitant about this. And they didn't know how to present one's own research and person, and which channel or medium, like social media, this channel, what's the best channel for me to become visible with my research. Many insecurities we became aware of. So I come to my conclusion and a short outlook. What we see from our research is that there are different perspectives on excellence, and they should be discussed and taken into account. We think, or our own research gives ample evidence that we have to reflect on and rethink the individual backgrounds and criteria for selecting the best and for excellence. We also see that this concept of visibility of research is multi-layered. We have the scientific community, we have society, and sometimes there are conflicts between these arenas of possible visibility. Where do I want to be visible? Where do I spend my time? And how can I become visible in this arena or the other one? So we obviously need to broaden the concept of excellence and to improve the visibility in particular, but not only of female researchers. In fact, what we have is a visibility paradox in the mirror of excellence attributions. You see a triangle, a never-ending triangle here. Of course, what we see on the right side is visibility through excellence, and this is what we all want. We want to be excellent, and this should be visible. But we also see that some people have visibility, but they are not excellent. And there's also excellence without visibility. So how can we work on this complex pattern of visibility and add this idea of maybe not everybody has to become visible? So what we recommended in our workshops to the younger, we had workshops with younger researchers, but also with people from the press office and of the universities and public affairs. The first thing would be reflect what kind of visibility you really want for yourself, for your research. Is it more in the scientific community? Is it more in the public sphere? How can you combine it? How much time do you want to spend there? We have expectations for scientific community and also for the public sphere, but we have to make clear for ourselves what kind of arena do we address in our activities, maybe. So it is important, in particular for younger researchers today, but also for established professors, to develop their own strategy for public visibility or for visibility, and to look for the right channels to become visible, and to ask for support, to ask to go to the press office. We found out that there's often no communication between press offices of universities and younger researchers. They don't know very much of each other. The younger researchers expect press officers to come to them to ask them for some information. The press officers, they expect younger researchers to approach them and to show good to give them ideas about what could be communicated out of their research. And they often don't communicate well together. So what we really recommended people in earlier stages of their academic career to be courageous and take chances and develop an own strategy for visibility, and to reflect about the right medium, involve university actors for science communication, and decide where you want to remain invisible. Thank you for your attention.